Hi, hello, this is going to be the first video I post on this channel, so I hope it's alright. This is a sort of video essay. It's something I had to write for school, but it's something I'm really quite passionate about and I enjoy speaking about it, so I'd like to share it with people, I think. Hope you enjoy this. Thanks. A lot of children's media gets overlooked as naive, unrealistic and meaningless. People think that because something's targeted towards a younger audience it can't be genuinely profound. I think those people are wrong. Paddington Bear. A little brown bear from Peru in a blue coat and a hat. An iconic symbol of British culture. The story of a young bear from Peru who arrives in London at Paddington Station and is taken in by the kind, loving and welcoming Brown family. Unfamiliar with British society, he naturally makes mistakes, but despite this, he is kind and he's polite and he always tries his best. I think we can all learn from him in that respect and make the world a better place. In the recent film, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Pedro Pascal's character talks about Paddington 2 and says, "I cried through the entire thing, it made me want to be a better man." Paddington does make people want to be kinder, and in a weird way I think that gives me hope for the future. In 1958 the first Paddington book was written, A Bear Called Paddington by Michael Bond. He originally got the idea from a stuffed toy bear he had bought for his wife and imagined what it would be like if there was a real bear living in London. Paddington's charm and personality comes partly from Bond's father, who was very polite and would always wear a hat so that he could tip it to people in greeting. Bond was also partly inspired by his memories of evacuee children he saw passing through Reading Station from London. Paddington had to travel to London from his home in darkest Peru, and Bond has said that Paddington is, in a sense, a refugee. Around the time that the first book was written in the 1950s, there were many people arriving in London, just as Paddington had, but not everyone was as welcoming as the Brown family. The Empire Windrush brought large numbers of economic migrants from the Caribbean to help the British economy after the Second World War. Many of these immigrants made their homes in London, settling in Brixton and Notting Hill, where Paddington lives in the books. The year the first book was published, there were violent riots in Notting Hill due to racial tensions. Bond's sympathy for immigrants and refugees is also shown through the character of Mr. Gruber, a Hungarian refugee based on someone he knew in real life. At this time, Paddington, despite being a bear, was a vital, positive portrayal of an immigrant and showed people kind and unprejudiced characters as role models, advocating for acceptance and respect. These books have been loved by many from 1958 to today, and Paddington has found his way through almost every type of media, from the original books to TV, and in 2014 even to film, reaching an entirely new audience with his escapades. The unusual thing about the Paddington films is that, unlike every other film franchise, the sequel is more loved, more moving, and on a whole better than the original, with a 99% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Very few children's films can have such a large emotional impact while still having some amazingly executed comedic scenes as well. Michael Bond himself described the first film as a delight from start to finish. One of the most endearing things about the Paddington films, which makes them so inspiring, is that every act of kindness has an effect. The bin man we see Paddington help practice to become a taxi driver later appears to give him a lift and help him out. This aspect of these films is perhaps the most clear in the scenes where Paddington's in prison and we see how his neighbours and the people he's befriended are affected by his absence. Without his kindness and support, everyone is unhappy and the sense of community is eroded, showing the importance of Paddington's kindness in his community. Another part of Paddington 2 that makes the film such a masterpiece is the villain, Phoenix Buchanan, played by Hugh Grant. He's the perfect villain for a children's film, as he's objectively self-centered and greedy, undeniably a bad person, yet he poses no real threat to any of the characters, and the most important thing is that despite all of his flaws, he still gets his singing and dancing happy ending. The world that Paddington lives in is a world full of kindness, which makes everyone happy. One of the qualities of the films which makes them such a fantastic adaptation from the books is the recontextualization of the themes of immigration, hostility, and cultural differences, in a way that is still relevant today, just as these issues are. The first film was made around the time our country was going through Brexit, and attitudes to immigrants were more negative than ever. We needed that reminder to be kinder, nicer, and more tolerant, just as much as we needed it the first time around, when the books were published in the 50s. Britain is not viewed by the world as a nice nation. We've traditionally been oppressors, occupiers, and thieves. But this is why Paddington is so important, because somehow a honest, helpful, and loving immigrant has become a symbol of British culture, recognised throughout the world. And that gives me hope, because it shows that Britain is becoming a kinder place and showing more of Paddington's values. And we love Paddington. A Paddington Bear toy was the first thing to pass through the Channel Tunnel when it was built. There are statues of Paddington all over London. The books have been translated into 30 languages. Why can't we show that kind of love to each other too? One of the main themes in the Paddington stories is kindness, a feature which many people believe defines humanity. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius said, "Man is built for deeds of kindness." However, over time, society has become more selfish. Self-interest seems to triumph over altruism. Under capitalism, to be kind is to be weak. In a system that values only success, there is no place for an altruistic act of kindness with no reward. Paddington stands against this. He is a character motivated by kindness. His naivety and lack of knowledge and his complete disregard for status, social cues, and capitalist ideals means that he acts truly altruistically, treating a pigeon with the same level of respect that he treats the Queen. In a country defined by the toxic hostility of Brexit, the anxiety and uncertainty of climate change, and the poisonous adversarial nature of British politics, we could all do with being a little nicer, a little kinder, a little more accepting of others. We need to be more Paddington.